Hi, everyone, and welcome to this session on interlinkages between natural assets and well being. I have with me today live Richard Hawkes, who is the CEO of British Asian Trust. He joined the British Asian Trust in 2015 as chief executive. He has held a range of senior roles in the UK and international not-for-profit sector for more than 25 years, including working for the United Nations, the chair of BOND, the umbrella body for UK international NGOs, for 5 years, and trustee for UNICEF UK. In addition to leading various organizations, Richard has a vast experience of social finance. As CEO of Scope, he was responsible for launching the first social investment bond in the UK. In October 2020, Richard was awarded an OBE for his contribution to the charity sector. Richard, my first question to you today, as we discuss different aspects of well being, and as the head of a significant development organization, is how should development organizations headquartered in the global north be thinking about well being and development outcomes today when a significant cause behind some of the big intractable development challenges in the global south are now being linked causally to ecological degradation and climate change?
Okay, well, first of all, Joanna, thank you very much for such a kind introduction. And congratulations to you and to the Balipara Foundation for putting on this event. It's a real privilege for me to have been invited to take part. I hope it's a successful event, and I hope that next year I will be able to attend in person, and will have moved beyond this awful COVID situation. But thank you very much for having me. So I think in your question there, I think there are two important issues that I'd like to address. The first is about how should we all be thinking about well-being and development outcomes today when the causes behind some of the biggest development challenges are totally linked to ecological degradation and to climate change. And the second bit that I just want to pick up on is, you talked about me being from an organization headquartered in the global north. And so I think there are two aspects to the question. The one is about those linkages. And the second is about the role of an organization that's headquartered in the global north. And I'd just like to say something about both of those, if that's okay. So on the first part, look, it's simply impossible today to ignore the interconnectedness of the health of the planet and the health of communities. We can no longer separate the ecological and climate crisis from development and how we address the biggest social justice issues of our time. It's absolutely crucial for all players to look at this intersection of development and conservation, or in many ways, as Balipara puts it, the interconnection between ecology and economy. We all rely on nature and ecosystems for many of our basic services, including food and clean air, water, even medicine. And these aren't luxuries, these are necessities, and we rely on them to survive as a species. We know that in the long run, that health outcomes are linked to the health of the environment and the wider ecosystem services, water, clean air, etc. And in order to stay relevant, we absolutely need to talk about the climate and ecological crisis, because these are going to change the way development is done and will almost certainly take us back decades in terms of development progress that has been made. On the second part, the role of northern NGOs or international organizations that are based in the global north. Let me be really clear about this. I've worked in international development for 25 years, and I have always absolutely hated, despised the arrogance of some people and organizations in the global north. We have absolutely no right whatsoever to tell people in the global south what to do. People in the UK have no right to tell people in India what to do. Not only is it patronizing and wrong, but let's be honest, we've made enough of a mess of the global north and our own countries that in many ways we should be learning from the global south. Local people and organisations will always have the best solutions. And the role of a northern-based organisation like the British Asian Trust is to listen, to facilitate, to enable, to support, maybe to help find funding, and maybe to bring international perspectives and learning, but never to impose, always to ensure that we are Southern-led.
Thanks, Richard. And just to go back to the point you were making about working in conservation and development together. So the British Asian Trust has actually been doing that now. You're working in both conservation and development under one banner. So how do you see experientially how this is shaping the way you think about well-being for the communities you work with? So what has well-being for these communities come to mean for the British Asian Trust?
Yeah. Okay. So the British Asian Trust, we have many years' experience of development, but we're very new in the conservation world. And until recently, our focus has been much more on what perhaps we would call human-related social issues, such as education, child protection, livelihoods, mental health, those sorts of areas. We know that all of these areas are going to be affected by climate change, conservation issues, and so on, and especially in India and in the wider region. Secure livelihoods, eco-anxiety, safe migration, all of these issues are at the intersection of our work and the climate crisis. If I'm really honest, until recently, we didn't consider these issues as much as we could have done and we should have done. But we are now. I don't need to tell you, but although they make up only 6% of the global population, Indigenous peoples inhabit approximately 85% of areas proposed for biodiversity conservation worldwide. 56% of the people living in important biodiversity conservation areas, including existing protected areas, are in low and middle income countries. So when you look at our conservation work, people and particularly Indigenous communities are at the heart of our strategy. So we absolutely can no longer think about development as separate from conservation.
Thank you, Richard. That's super important. And I think that brings me really to the last question I have for you, which is how can development organizations actually start moving beyond what has traditionally been a very siloed approach, which often disregards the environmental question, and effectively tackle the question of climate challenges for well-being and resilience among the communities they support?
Yeah. So I think that the overwhelmingly top priority, the most important thing for organizations to do is to actually recognize and accept the importance of doing exactly this. And so it's to have honest conversations, honest reflections, but then to recognize how important it is to do this and to get this right. I would say that for too long, development actors, and as I said, I include the British Asian Trust in this, we saw climate change as almost like another vertical focus area. And so if organizations were prioritizing and working out how many areas to work in, climate change would just be in the mix with everything else in terms of making choices. But as I've said, we just can no longer think about development as being separate from conservation or climate change. So we can't think in that way anymore. Any good development organization has to think about climate change as a development issue, as a social justice issue, and as one that absolutely cuts across and impacts all of our programs and all of our priorities. At the British Asian Trust, we're really looking at this intersection of these issues, looking at the impact of climate on all of our work as we plan for the future and plan to develop strong and sustainable programs across the region. I think it's the job of progressive thinkers and organizations to now urgently lead the way on mainstreaming climate across all development policy and practice so that we can be truly effective and impactful. And I genuinely congratulate the Balipara Foundation for leading the way on this. We are learning a lot from Balipara, and hopefully that will make the British Asian Trust programs even stronger. And then between us, the more that we can encourage other development actors to do exactly the same, the more successful we will all be.
Thank you so very much, Richard, for your kind words and for, I think, a truly fantastic, I think, comments on how we actually all need to be working together. Definitely, I think this is a conversation that needs to start happening now. We can no longer afford to work in different silos. Conservation development organizations have to work together. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join
Thank you.
us
Thank you for
today.
having me. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Joanna.